This is a Damien Television Productions presents. Welcome to Are You Afraid of the Creepypasta Tales? Episode 8. Three Stooges, Dead Dunderheads. When the original Three Stooges aired in 1930, it was obviously going to be a big hit. It aired in almost every movie theater. Three Stooges were only aired in movie theaters for the first few years across the country. Three Stooges had begun to air on television. It had multiple spin-offs, including the Three Stooges with Moe, Joe, and Larry, or Three Stooges with Moe, Shemp, and Larry. But everyone's favorite was probably the Three Stooges with Curly Howard. Opinions began to change when almost every Three Stooges fan was revealed to one of the most shocking episodes yet. It was 1947, and the episode Half-Wits Holiday was about to come to theaters. And this episode marked the end of Moe, Larry, and Curly era, as Curly had suffered a major stroke on set. Surprisingly, the episode only aired in 2 or 3 theaters in the US, and only a few people had attended the screenings for it. On the 4th day of its release, the film aired at a small suburban neighborhood shopping center. The shopping center had a theater with the latest films of the generation. According to police, only 3 or 4 individuals have arrived in the theater to watch a simple screening of what they thought would be Half-Wits Holiday. It was later revealed that it was much more than that. The episode started off normally as any other regular episode would. The title frame slowly faded to view and remained on screen for a good minute. This is when things to go eerie. The title frame began to shake violently, then disappear altogether. Viewers are showed a white screen for a good 5 minutes and reported quite a ruckus, possibly a struggle of an individual. An alternate title slowly faded to view and was simply labeled The Three Stooges, in a similar font, except without the faces of the main actors and the music playing in the background. The title frame faded out, and the name of the episode was proudly printed across the screen. The words read D.E.D. Dunderheads for a split second and abruptly transferred to Dead Dunderheads. Then simply just to Dead. The screen quickly transferred to the actual episode. A camera faced a room with no furniture, with the exception of some tarp on the ground and a ladder in the background. It apparently looked as if a room had been remodeled. A man dressed up as Moe waddles into the screen reluctantly, wearing a cheap bowl-cut wig that looked like as if it was about to fall off. A tag is clearly seen in the back of the wig, whether it was for entertainment purposes or not. The man had a worried look in his face, his eyes darting around the room nervously, his fingers constantly fidgeting, and he appeared to be waiting for someone to come on the screen. Then small mirrors are heard in the background. After about 30 seconds, the so-called Curly is apparently pushed on screen. Curly was an overweight man with a black eye and multiple cuts on his cheek and scalp. His mouth is slanted in a downward position, and he looked too nervous. He told Moe to go check the flooring on the other side of the room in an unprofessional way, quietly with a couple words slurred. Moe shuffles off camera. As soon as he leaves the sight of the camera, a so-called Larry walks onto the screen. This had to be the worst of the two. It was a female with her hair messily cut and styled to represent the original Larry from the original Stooges. Yeah. During lines, she would occasionally sob or mispronounce a word or two. Curly tells her that he needs to fix the roof and points to the ladder. But now, tears are clearly visible streaming down Larry's face as he hesitates to walk over the ladder. She finally seems to build up enough courage to climb up a few steps on the ladder and pretends to work on the roof with a wrench. Curly then bends down and pulls out the toolbox. He reveals that he had multiple sharp, dangerous tools with him and lays them out on the tarp. For a few minutes, everything seems normal. Around the 3-minute mark, Mo walks onto the screen, stares at the ladder that Larry is working on, and heaves a sigh. He slowly walks by the ladder as the camera zooms on his feet. One of his feet gets caught on one of the legs of the ladder, and the ladder is swept from underneath Larry. Mole hits the ground hard as the ladder comes down, crashing down to the floor. Larry falls down onto the ground on top of the ladder along with a branch, which hits Mo in the back of the head. Mo appears to spew blood on the ground, but by the next frame, the blood is gone and Mo cleaned up. A look of pain comes onto the face of female Larry. He struggles to stand up as it appears that he had landed on his wrist. He clenches his wrist tightly as he walks over to Mo, waits for him to stand up and pokes him in the eye rather aggressively. Mo cries, "Ooh!" and falls to the ground. His hands covering his eyes. He quickly works up himself and gives Larry a death glare and says a chilling line. "If you want a war, you'll get a war." He smacks Larry upside the head, leaving Larry distorted and in pain. He pushes Curly out of the way, who has finished laying out his tools, and Moles bends down and picks up the screwdriver. He trudges over to Larry, who is still hunched over in pain. He taps on Larry's shoulder. Larry looks up and Moles drives the screwdriver into Larry's eye. By now, 3 of the 4 members had gotten up and left the theater, children crying, women shaking in fear. The only remaining audience member was the male in his 20s, an amateur movie maker studying the arts of movies and television shorts, so that one day a film could be in the theater. Sure, he was disguised, but he had no idea that it was real. He continued to take notes about the film's violent nature. The 3 audience members report to the staff, who assume that the wrong movie is playing, and also assume that everyone has left to the theater, so they leave the film running. Mo lets go of the screwdriver and puts his bloody hands over his eyes, appearing to block the violence away from his vision. The camera now focuses on Larry, now crying, blood running down his face. Larry drops the tarp and passes out from shock. It is unknown if Harry is even alive by now, but if it even matters, Mo will bend down and yank the screwdriver out of Larry's eye. The screwdriver possibly pre-attended the brain, leaving Larry motionless on the tarp. Mo spaces the camera, mutters, "You heartless, sick beep." The film is obviously edited out, because a puddle of blood has now formed underneath Larry, and Mo had multiple bruises and cuts on his face now. The man watching the film later complained to authorities that the film began to be fuzzy and distorted, giving me a headache. A headache indeed. This film appeared to be damaged in that part of the film reel, as the screen flashes in white and black rapidly, leaving a series of events legible for the next few minutes. After the flashing stops, the audio appears to not work again, as it appears Mo is saying something to Curly, but it is impossible to hear what they're saying. Since the beginning and the end of the white flashing, Mo appears to have new cuts, and Curly appears to have sliced lips. Larry is now absolutely dead, but the actors take notice to him. No notice to him. Mo now appears to be sawing some wood of it with a rusty old saw, and Curly is hammering some nails onto the wall for no apparent reason. As Curly walks across the room to get some nails off screen, he slips one of the tools he laid out and reaches for Mo to help him. He dexterously grabs for the saw, scratching his hand vigorously as he hits the ground with a thud. The audio abruptly begins to work again, and Curly is now heard whimpering as he crawls off screen, leaving a trail of blood. "You fool! Someone could have got hurt!" Mo shouts. He scolds Curly as he walks back onto the screen by giving him a stunning punch on the stomach. A strange look comes upon Curly's face as he bends over and vomits up a little fluid. Small chuckles and snickers are heard in the background as Curly returns to punching nails in the wall, now breathing heavier as he's about to burst into tears. About 5 minutes passed, and Curly asks for some help, for Mo to nail some more nails onto the wall. Mo holds the nail as Curly hammers the nail more and more onto the wall. You expect Curly to hit Mo in the thumb with a hammer, but it luckily doesn't happen. Instead, when Mo walks back to sawing some wood again, he asks for some help. Curly holds a wooden plank for Mo, who missily cuts and deliberately lets the saw blade graze Curly's fingers. Curly quickly draws away with a furious look on his face, picks up the hammer, and swings the hammer into Mo's genitals. As Mo falls to the floor, blood and cement leak out of his pants. He gasps for breath as he grabs Curly's leg and begins to bite. Curly gives another swing of the hammer to Mo's hand, leaving it dislocated when the bone snaps. Mo crawls over to the saw, now on the floor, and throws it at Curly. The saw blade penetrates Curly's big round belly with blood oozes out of both his stomach and mouth. He lets go of the hammer, which falls upon his toes, making a large echo-cracking sound. Curly begins to mumble gibberish and slurred sentences about toys and sports, and remarks about his mother and his genitals. As he talks and faces the camera, blood often manages to shoot out of his mouth and onto the lens of the camera. During the middle of one of the sentences, he collapses to the ground, barely even alive, and manages to grab a hammer, still mumbling on and on about nonsense. And he heaves it on with his last bit of straight at Mo, who is now unconscious. The hammer slammed onto his back, shattering his spine. Curly manages to laugh a little bit, and he passes out from blood loss. Loud laughter is now heard as the reel decays, leaving a plain white screen. The laughter soon fades out, and the one man in the audience is left in awe. The police arrived a few minutes later, who managed to seize the film and evacuate the theater from possible threats. When police entered the room where the film was being projected onto the screen, they found the man, supposedly the one who was supposed to air Half-Wits Holiday, tied up and intensely beaten. The man remembers little and is worried that the man who tied him up might come back and kill him if he gives away information to the police. It is obvious that the wounds that the man had taken was not self-inflicted, but he is still a major suspect in the case. The man who made the film reel is said to be a sadistic filmmaker who was addicted to Three Stooges. The police have no information on him at all, apart from some evidence from the film. Police have refrained to work at the film for a few seconds. A shadow appears, a man holding something similar to a clipboard, and a shadow then goes out of sight. The second piece of evidence is a few mistakes he had with the film, as he accidentally revealed that his tone voice with a few snickers he had left escaped out of his mouth multiple times. His voice is deep and hollow, as it seems it belonged to a white man in his 50s. The third piece of evidence is visible when the man appeared to signal for something to come to him, lifting his hand onto the camera. His hand had multiple scars, wrinkles, and freckles, signaling that he is in his late 50s when the film aired that day. The actor for Cully was actually an autistic man, kidnapped from the mental hospital when he wandered out the front door and down the street. The actor for Mo was a businessman who was addicted to drink alcohol and doing drugs. He was kidnapped on his way home from work. The actress for Larry was a cheating wife who had 4 husbands. She was kidnapped while walking to her job. The 3 had no relations in any way, but what the police did discover is that they each had flaws in their lives, and the police assumed that the madman wanted to make life more perfect by erasing all flaws from the human race. The film was shot on location in a local abandoned office building. The actor for Mo was pronounced dead. The actress for Larry was pronounced dead, but the actor for Curly was in critical condition and was on the verge of death. He slowly recuperated and managed to live for a few more years until committing suicide. He did not tell the police much, but he did tell much of what's rather helpful. The bad man ran out of the door and drove away. He told one of his friends that he was going far, far away. The police had been found on the lookout all over the country, but there was no luck. A reward was captured and has been raised for $5 million. Columbia Pictures was notified about the event, but refused to comment on it. A couple of workers quit from Columbia shortly, believing that one of them could have possibly been a sick person that wrote this. As for the mature filmmaker, he came to my grandpa, who happened to tell me the whole story. He has been questioned by the authorities as well, and is also a major factor in this. The man who had filmed this movie thought is possibly dead. If he was in his late 50s, 70 years ago, the case could be dismissed and all could be at peace. Well, I'd love to tell you more, but I have to leave. Someone was talking to me about starting an independent film. Okay, that was Dead Dunderheads, Three Stooges. That's unbelievable. I mean, that's one of the creepypastas about a Three Stooges comedians that got killed in suicide. It's so weird, and I thought this is gonna be a crazy episode that the people made. And yeah, I would enjoy this, but interesting enough, I like it. So, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And episode 11, or I meant 10, will be the Magic School Bus original pilot episode. Okay, I hope you enjoyed episode 9. We'll see you in episode 10. Has been a Damien Lack Home Television Productions. Thank you and subscribe.